In the news this week, why I will be voting no, an ex-Liberal MP goes public on his referendum decision. A WAMA News exclusive.
Emotional farewell to Officer Anthony Woods as the alleged perpetrator faces upgraded charges.
A man allegedly stabbed to death at a servo during a physical altercation in Perth's north.
Peter Kennedy's analysis on the Yes campaign's next move as support continues to slip. And later, Dr. Andrew Miller's comment.
This is The Evening News with Ivan Loom and Maliva Thorne.
Good evening. The No campaign continues to gain momentum in Western Australia, with an ex-Liberal MP revealing he will be voting no on the Voice to Parliament referendum. In an exclusive interview, former MLC Anthony Fells says he'll be urging other Western Australians to vote against the Voice, as support for the Yes camp continues to slip. He joined me earlier. Felsey, thanks for your time. Will you be voting yes or no on the Voice referendum later this year?
I'll be voting no, and I'm urging everyone else to vote no.
Why is that the case?
Because there's nothing that the Albanese government are proposing to improve for Aboriginal or First Australians by this constitutional change that they can't do through legislation in the Parliament, and I've got a majority in both houses of Parliament now, or with the Greens, who are also supportive of the Voice.
When it comes to the Voice itself, Linda Burney says she wants the Voice to focus on housing, education, health and other bread and butter issues for First Nations people. What's wrong with having a voice in Parliament? Isn't that a good thing?
Well, they have a voice in Parliament. There's Aboriginal people, Indigenous people elected to Parliament now, and there's plenty of white Australians also elected to Parliament who stand up for Aboriginal people. So, as well as that, housing and education are both state issues. So, those things should be done by the states. If you want to have a voice, well, start at the states before you go federal. But either way, it's dangerous to put it in the Constitution. We've got a Constitution that represents everybody, and Aboriginal issues also affect everybody. So they've got members of Parliament in both houses of Parliament on both sides of the House, Labor, Liberal and Greens. And there's nothing to stop the Parliament doing any of the things that they want to do. This is just basically an admission by Labor and Liberal that they've failed in the past, and they don't know how to deal with the situation, and they're just going to handball it to what they call the Voice, and every time there's a difficult situation it'll just be handballed to a separate group of people who we don't even know how they're going to be appointed yet, how the elections are going to be run. There's the majority of Aboriginal and Indigenous Australians probably won't even get an opportunity to vote for their representatives, so it just falls over every way you look at it.
Why are you labelling the Voice as a danger, given it's just an advisory board? It's not going to have any legislative powers within the constitutional change.
You don't need it in the Constitution. You can go and ask 30 people or 100 people or one person, whatever you like, the Prime Minister or members of Parliament. They don't need an advisory board unless they want one, but you don't need a constitutional change to have one. They can set one up. They've had them in the past and they've failed. And this is just an admission that the government, it's too hard for them. We had an Aboriginal Affairs Minister, Ken Wyatt, recently represented them for 3 years, didn't close the gap at all. The Labor, Liberal, they've all failed. And this is not going to improve the situation. It might be 20 or 30 years down the track, and there'll be an admission then that it didn't work. And what are they going to do next? They're going to have to unwind the Constitution somehow.
Given that you will be voting no and encourage others to do so, will you put forward any alternative solutions?
Well, this is not a debate about my solutions. We're making progress. There's obviously we've got more Aboriginals elected to Parliament now than ever before, so they are being heard. It's good to see both sides of the Parliament are saying they need a voice. Well, yeah, of course they need a voice, and they need people representing them, and all of the issues that go with that. But they don't need to handball it to another organisation that we don't even know how it's going to be appointed or what they're going to do or what their powers are going to be, and then that'll change every time there's a change of government. This will become an issue in future elections because oppositions will campaign on ways to change the appointment of the Voice if it's going to be appointed by the Parliament under the Constitution. But we don't know how it's structured or any of those things, and that's what the problem is, going into a constitutional change now to address issues that the Parliament has failed in the past and basically admitting they're giving up on now.
And you can read more about the story right now on the WIMN Extra News Club. Anthony Fells, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Ivan.
An estimated 2,000 police officers, politicians and other dignitaries gathered alongside family and friends of fallen officer Constable Anthony Woods at Optus Stadium this week. The funeral service concluded with an emotional guard of honour to farewell Officer Woods. Meanwhile, the alleged perpetrator is facing murder charges.
It was an emotional service to farewell an outstanding police officer who is larger than life. Members of the public and the media were invited to join the service via live stream outside the stadium. Family and friends of Mr. Woods paid tribute by sharing fond memories and detailing his incredible positive outlook on life.
The stories that were conveyed yesterday confirm he was an absolute gentleman, a perfect police officer. He sought to do good. He wanted to change the community for the better.
Anthony Woods was tragically killed after he was run over by a car allegedly bearing stolen number plates. He is the 88th WA police officer to die in the line of duty. Prior to the funeral, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese shared a heartwarming statement in support of Woods' family and colleagues. After the service, a wave of blue descends the stairs of Optus Stadium as police officers began to form a guard of honour for Constable Anthony Woods' final journey. The hearse was led by a pipe band and 5 mounted police before being escorted to a private burial service under police guard. Meanwhile, authorities confirmed that charges have been upgraded to murder for the alleged perpetrator of the incident.
Homicide Squad were conducting or managing the investigation. They obviously did a thorough investigation, looked at all the evidence, and as a result of reviewing all of the evidence, they decided to make a decision to upgrade their charge to murder.
Hi there. Are you looking for a new home or want to refinance your car mortgage to get a better rate? At AA Finance Solutions, we have the expertise and knowledge to help you to find the right loan for your needs and budgets. Contact us today. Let us help you to make your home ownership dream a reality.
AA Finance Solutions, your local mortgage broker.
A man has been stabbed to death with a machete outside a Lansdale service station following a physical altercation. The incident occurred at a Lansdale petrol station located on Malinga Way at around 4:15 p.m. on Thursday. Police says 2 men had been involved in the physical altercation outside the servo. The victim was approached by a 3rd man and was struck with a machete. The male victim in his 20s received injuries consistent with stab wounds and died at the scene. WA Police Assistant Commissioner Peter Healy confirmed the 28-year-old man is assisting authorities with inquiries.
Police business units, forensics officers and local police to obviously conduct an investigation into the unfortunate death of a man. What I can tell you, sadly, a male in his 20s has passed away as a result of injuries he sustained at that service station. I am happy to say at the moment we have a male in his age 28 that's assisting us with our investigation.
The Western Australian government has confiscated hundreds of illegal guns in a buyback scheme. Over 200 firearms which have been outlawed were handed over. In WA, almost 20 calibres of ammunition are now illegal and 56 types of guns. The gun buyback plan has seen the WA police sign off on payments in excess of $1 million and dozens more are still being processed. The WA government has bought 185 guns from their owners at what the authorities say is market value. They also praised very high-powered firearms owners for their cooperation before the deadline on the 1st of July.
The 2023 Hospital Health Check report has highlighted that whilst conditions for junior doctors in WA have improved, burnout and bullying remain unsolved issues. Over 700 junior doctors, known as doctors in training, gave the material that informed the Australian Medical Association WA's report. The report showed improvement in 2022. However, problems like harassment, bullying and discrimination proved to be major setbacks. The organisation's president, Dr. Michael Page, believed that the results has gotten better due to strong advocacy by the AMA and its doctors in training practice groups in areas such as wage theft, roster compliance and mandatory training payments. Meanwhile, doctors are also facing problems of being able to get leave. On the best performing employer overall was St. John of God, while the worst were King Edward Memorial Hospital and CAHS.
The WA Police Arson Squad is investigating a house fire in Morley. DFS personnel were dispatched to a residential address on Fitzgerald Street just after 4 a.m. on Wednesday. Authorities believe the fire began in the garage area before escalating into the house, causing extensive damage to the garage and 2 vehicles. Police released CCTV footage showing flames were allegedly lit by an unidentified person. Rewards of up to $25,000 are available for information that leads to the identification and conviction of an arsonist. Anyone with any information relating to this fire is urged to contact Crime Stoppers.
And now here's Leo Puglisi with what's coming up on 6 News tonight.
Thanks, guys. On 6 News, Linda Burney says the scope of the voice to Parliament will be a two-way process. Growing unease after the US sends widely banned cluster bombs to Ukraine, and Labor says they don't expect to win the upcoming Fadden by-election. Watch live and on demand 24/7 on our YouTube channel. Just search 6 News AU to find us, or head to our website 6newsau.com. For now, though, guys, it is back to you.
Thanks, Leo. Speaking of the voice to Parliament, as we saw earlier, there's been quite a development. What are your thoughts, Ivan?
The discussions are certainly ramping up, and of course we look forward to cover each and every turn right here on WAMN News in the next few weeks. But right now, here's Grace Harrington with Western Perspective. Good evening, Grace.
Thanks, Ivan and Melly. Welcome to Western Perspective. I'm Grace Harrington. The voice to Parliament debate drags on as support for the yes vote continues to slip in opinion polls. It serves as a political alarm bell for the Albanese government as the No campaign continues to gain traction. With a referendum date yet to be announced, the question remains as to whether the delay strategy will be detrimental to the Yes campaign's success or its failure. Here is political commentator Peter Kennedy's analysis.
The campaign for the Indigenous voice is reaching a critical stage. Indigenous Affairs Minister Linda Burney was speaking at the National Press Club a few days ago and set out the goals of the voice, and she said the criteria included employment, education, health and housing. It was to give the voice a bit of direction, which has been lacking up until now. She said they're the sort of things that she expects the voice to look at to improve those areas for Aboriginal people around Australia. The key is to give the yes case a bit of impetus, and that's what she was trying to do, because there's a feeling at the moment that the no case, led by Opposition Leader Peter Dutton, is gaining ground, and in fact is leading in a number of states. So the issue, very, very important, a critical stage. No date's been set for the referendum. The tip is that it will be in mid-October, so there's still a lot of time to go for campaigning on both sides. Both Linda Burney and Anthony Albanese are giving greater attention to Western Australia. The Prime Minister, of course, has been in Perth over the weekend. Very important, looking at the voice, but other issues as well. So the profile, I guess, the profile of the federal government in the West has increased, and obviously the voice is uppermost in their minds.
The voice itself has significant support issues right now. Do you concede that you should have perhaps split both questions up? Why did you package it all in one place?
Well, the Parliament did that. The Parliament did that, and there were no amendments to it. And I make this point. No amendments were moved in the Senate. There were no votes in the Senate on this. Or indeed the process that occurred was very clear. But it's a process that led up to 2017, where First Nations people gathered at Uluru and said that they wanted constitutional recognition that was spoken about since the last century under the Howard government. And the form they wanted was an advisory group, a voice that could be listened to about matters that directly affect them. The voice is just the means to the end. The end is closing the gap on education outcomes, on health, on housing, on incarceration rates. We have in this country an 8-year life expectancy gap between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians. We need to do better. We have more chance of if you're a young Indigenous male, more chance of going to jail than going to university. We need to do better And more than, you are more than twice as likely to take your own life if you are an Indigenous person than a non-Indigenous person. I'll make this point about the voice as well, that there are some who are now saying had the opportunity and the almost decade they were in government to legislate on the voice, who are now saying they want it to be legislated rather than in the Constitution. Putting in the Constitution doesn't detail the operations and structure and functions of the voice. That's very clear from the third part of what's put forward. But it seems to me there's an inconsistency there that was pointed out in an article by Chris Kenny today in The Australian, that if you say that it's okay to legislate it, that is what is going to happen. The details will be legislated after the referendum, with a successful referendum later this year. And I'll give the Premier an opportunity to speak on these issues as well.
Just firstly on the voice, obviously that's an incredibly important part of our journey as a nation. The voice is a very simple proposition. It's about recognition, it's about consultation. And from that perspective, it is no reason why any reasonable thinking person shouldn't want to get behind this initiative. This is going to be an important step for our country, and I urge everyone to take the opportunity to vote yes in the voice referendum.
So a critical stage, as I say, the voice, the yes case, well resourced from the resources sector particularly, but big companies have poured in a lot of money. It's not to say that the no case isn't well resourced either, but the campaign reaching a critical stage. And as far as the future is concerned, just what it means, people are increasingly focusing on it now, but still a lot of work to be done, still a lot of promotion from both sides, and it promises to be a critical time for the country, but also Western Australia will be critical in the voice. It appears at this stage that in Western Australia the no case has the numbers, and when you look at the referendum overall, you have to have a majority of voters in a majority of states. If Western Australia decides not to support the voice, then you're looking at two other states that have a similar view, and the voice will be defeated, regardless of the aggregate number of votes. Peter Kennedy, WAMN News.
That was Peter Kennedy. You can read more of our weekly premium news stories now on WAMN Extra News Club, supporting independent local news and keeping democracy strong. And now, here's Dr. Andrew Miller with his weekly medical and news commentary.
Hi, thanks for your time. Really interesting report come out from the AMA-WA this week. Survey that's been completed by 700 junior doctors who are the backbone of the work done in the public hospital system, where they work under the supervision of specialist doctors, but they do a large part of the diagnosis, the prescription of treatment and the procedures that are done on public patients. And you know that we've had a lot of problems in this system, problems with burnout, with people being underpaid, and at a time when we're competing with other states and in fact the jurisdictions around the world for future medical workforce, it's really important that these things improve. There's some green shoots there. The North Metro Health Service in particular seems to have turned its results around to a degree, and still some problems in the Child and Adolescent Health Service, which of course runs the Perth Children's Hospital, with the way that our doctors in training and junior doctors there are being treated. So I think what this tells us is that if we do work hard on looking after our employees, if we do focus on their welfare, if we do consider that work-life balance is a really important part of having a healthy working population, then these things can be improved. It's not just bad conditions that we have to accept. So I guess I want to give credit to the organisations that are doing well to look after their people, tell the others to put their socks up, because we live in an isolated part of the world. We can't go to another city to get our healthcare. In fact, our entire very remote state relies on the tertiary and even more specialised facilities that are available in our city. And so we need to really look after people who have roots here so that they don't decide to take their careers elsewhere. It's just as true in healthcare as it is in the mining industry and agriculture. It's just as true for nurses as it is for doctors, and just comes down to doing the right thing and looking after people, and also acting up against government bureaucracy where that has bad outcomes for people. And we've seen that also with the Robo-Debt Royal Commission that came out this week. Any number of people could have blown the whistle on the fact that that was just being cruel, and that those outcomes were not the way that they should be. And yet people still stuck with just applying that process no matter what the outcomes were. So it makes us think about the way we run large government organisations. It's also a message to those that think that they can kind of tolerate this sort of problem as long as it's not happening to them. Well, eventually, hopefully, the chickens come home to roost and the truth comes out about the administration of government, things that are not going right. So whilst it's some good news there in the health system, at the end of the day, we can't afford to relax, because it's about the way that our families and our more vulnerable in our community get treated within our system, and they deserve us to be applying all of our energy all of the time to making sure that it's working as well as it can be for the taxpayer dollars. Thanks very much for your time.
That was Dr. Andrew Miller, and that's Western Perspective for this week. Until next Sunday evening, it's back to you, Ivan and Melly.
Thanks, Grace. And that's our weekly news and current affairs. We have the latest news on our website, wamnnews.com.au.
Don't forget to subscribe to the WAMN Extra News Club so we can continue our work in the community. Full details on wamnnews.com.au/news/extra. From Melly and myself, wish you good health, good night. See you next Sunday.
Thanks for watching.